you know, your experience all those years within the ecosystem and looking at the evolution of the technology so far, what would you say in few words are which you consider as positive and negative in and out of the evolution of this technology and where you see the future? Dr. Steve?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. The point that Nee emphasized and that I pointed to as well is that there's an awful lot of local initiative that the communities spring up, that the technical capabilities of the local communities, both informally and formally in terms of the local businesses that form around the internet are created, add capacity and are able to adapt and expand. I think this is absolutely vital and is one of the things that makes the internet both very useful and also very exciting to participate in. So I think in terms of looking forward, I expect to see more and more of that kind of initiative. New uses that will put demands on the technology and creation of technology to meet the demands. And it does not have to happen uniformly everywhere. It'll happen first somewhere and then get adopted elsewhere. And that, I think, is one of the great things about the way the internet is structured. So today we're having a video conference. As I said, that was a wild dream when we started. I think there will be many other kinds of interactions that we will be able to have. There's obviously, when everyone brings technology into a new environment, both positives and negatives. There are a lot of ways to misuse technology and for people to use technology to misuse each other, if you will. I don't think that's going to change. I think that's going to be just part of the human condition, and that all of us need to work to understand and deal with those kind of problems. But I'm confident that we can do that. I don't think I have anything very deep to offer about specifically what kinds of things are going to happen. I will say one thing which I think is relevant, particularly in the African environment, as well as in other parts of the world. We have the advantage now of being able to talk to each other over the internet, and we have quite a bit of advance in the processing of speech. And so we can transcribe what I'm saying into text, perhaps, and we can also translate from one language to another. I think that at some point we will be able to converse with each other in our own native languages. It is not a small problem technically. It may be possible to do early experiments that are more intriguing for their fact that you can do it, but not actually quite useful because of the nuances and complexity of human speech and the differences among languages. But nonetheless, over a period of time, it may be possible to have very complex interactions in our own native languages, and that they turn out to be a positive addition to the technology that we have today. And particularly in an environment in Africa where you not only have the major Western languages, English and French and Portuguese and so forth, but an enormous range of local languages, the native languages that are worth preserving. There may be opportunity to preserve the culture of Africa in ways that were not previously envisioned. So that's the only prediction that I want to offer that might be intriguing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Crocker. Dr. Nee.
Okay. Okay. For me, I'm going to be very direct to your local context. I think we need to work to improve the penetration, and very quickly, because this is now going to begin to affect the economy. So we have to have a plan to go from 30% to 100% like in zero time. Okay, you need to do that. Otherwise, the economies will all, whistle away. So we need to figure out how to go about that, as well as means of lowering the costs for the ordinary person to be able to afford. Now, the future in this case, if you are to predict, it includes all, but that's kind of difficult. What I might say is that the policy environment needs to be gingered up. Sometimes it takes long before an issue gets recognized for debate, and then even the consequences of it, or whatever we are doing to resolve whatever issues there are, takes long. Look how long it took for us to do policy reform just so that we could have internet. And I think those sort of things also slow us down. We haven't quite understood how to sandbox the world, ourselves, so to speak, so that we allow new things to evolve, even though there are no regulations or laws, what have you, for it. We need to figure that out. And if we do, then it will give chance for your really innovative, potential to emerge. As it is now, it is constrained. I also see that there are some situations in which we wish we had a little bit more capacity, technical capacity, and we need to address that. Meaning, in terms of growing people more towards a more senior level, we seem to perhaps, not quite there. And lastly, we need to have a respect for the openness. The openness is so powerful that we have to take it seriously and respect it, in the sense that it is also, some people can try to abuse it. And it's something that for a young environment, which may not have all the resilience yet, that openness in some sense is respected and followed through. But I really appreciate the suggestion of Steve regarding the languages. There's a lot of our cultural things which are also disappearing, not only in the language area. I am, as some of you may know, I'm an advocate for using your game boards for calculations at early age instead of abacus, for example, because it does the same things, but the environment has not been looking at its own self to in some sense grow with, and we need to. But that's a much larger thinking that socially and economically we're going to have to do.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nee. We are getting very close to the time allocated to this. We have actually one question from the audience that I will quickly take. Alain, you have your hands up very quickly. Alain Aina.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, I'm Alain Aina, CTO of Wakran. I have a question to both Steve and Nee. So, Steve, you said that at the beginning, nobody knew exactly what was going to happen, and it was just a dream. And when designing the system, then the team has to make some choices, in terms of the protocols, in terms of the numbers, etc. And then so these days we are now trying to evolve the network, to evolve the system, and sometimes it includes making changes to the core, the numbering, the IP address, the protocols, the routing protocol. But then we are facing challenges touching the core. So my question is, shall we continue trying to improve the core, or we just leave the core to continue moving the packet and we do everything at the upper layers?
You are mute, Steve.
Be able to hear me. So my quick answer is yes, but which is a humorous answer in the sense that there is a mixture. It's obviously impossible to do major changes to the core very quickly. And so there is a great tendency to work around whatever the mistakes are, and there are some. At the same time, it's not impossible to make changes to the core. They just take a long time, and one has to be very limited and specific about what kinds of changes are. So it does not have a simple answer of one or the other. It's a mixture, and one has to dig into the details. The transition, for example, from IPv4 to IPv6 has been very troublesome. I trace some of that difficulty back to the decisions that we made at the very, very beginning, where we didn't treat addresses as objects and encapsulate all the access to them. But there's nothing to be done about that except to figure out a way to plow forward. The faster we can transition everything over to IPv6, the better off we will be, and we can shake loose some of the mistakes there. But as I say, one just has to look at the specific kinds of problems that you're alluding to and decide what approach to take, whether to work around it or to work through.
Thank you, Dr. Steve. I will take one more question from the audience. We have Chinusishi Kalonda. Cindy, can you speak up? We cannot hear you. Well, we cannot hear Chinusindu.
Is it something automatic?
Yeah, you can speak now. Move to the next in the queue because we are a little bit out of time. I have Mohamed Diop that is the next on the queue. Mohamed?
Hello, yes. Thank you. If you hear me, it's okay. Can I ask?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Steve. Thank you, QnA. Thanks to all the participants and also to yourself. My question goes both to Steve and Ni, is related to the role of the passion and the knowledge in innovation. Going back to 50 years ago, what was the main ingredient that we need in order to make these things happening? Because 50 years later, for me, my lecture is just the passion have disappeared and left the place to money and benefit, and I see the passion fading. So my question is, do you think that without passion and that love and that commitment, you'd be able to set up what we call like that wonderful tools that we are using as the internet? And what advice do you give to young generation who are listening to us in order to take over? Thanks.
Yeah, the passion is fading. That's
to Dr. Ni.
That's
Ni, do you want to take this first?
no. Steve is on the floor. Let him go, please. I'll come.
Okay. All right. So Mohammed, good to hear your voice again. Pleasure to interact with you again. Let me offer the following picture or perception. In the early days, when we were putting the first pieces together, there was essentially a single and relatively small community that was working on the basic architecture. Today, of course, the internet is millions of times bigger and involves many more people than we had at the time. And instead of a single internet community from a technical perspective, there's actually quite a lot of, very many different communities that form around particular issues. So just to continue, for example, with the idea that I suggested of automatically translating speech from one language to another, which is a pretty distant goal at the moment. People working on that, I would imagine, would have quite a bit of passion and will form connections with other people with similar interests and be pioneers in that field, and will have major impact 50 years from now. There are plenty of other similar kinds of big challenges that will attract people with passion and with an interest in having an impact, and will form their own communities of similar interest. Yes, of course, there's quite a bit of money involved. There's an awful lot of business that has to be done, and this is absolutely necessary. We are dependent upon major businesses, ISPs, and other platforms that connect us together that we couldn't live without. But I think there are also, as I said, many areas, not just one or two or a few, but many areas that are going to attract the same kind of passion and zeal and have long-term payoff instead of instantaneous or immediate payoff. And so I would hope that people listening to what I'm saying and people throughout the world will get attracted to those kinds of challenges and plunge in and make things happen.
Dr. Crocker, Dr. Nee, quickly.
Yeah, let me touch on an earlier question about the core and the higher layers. You know, whenever you touch the core, when many things are standing on it, then you're going to have to face the issue of impact or retesting and so on. So unless it is really very necessary, normally one way to encourage the high-paced growth towards the edges, simply from the nature of level structured systems. That's how one will react. But Steve is right. You can do either way depending on how much effort we want to commit. Now, to Diop's question, it may appear that the passion is dissipating, but I tend to side with Steve that the passion will be going elsewhere. For instance, if you just scan and you see the amount of passion going on in the blockchain environment, you kind of become surprised that we don't have the same, excitement and passion within the, let's say, the lower levels of the stack. And so, but there's still a need for the core and the people who support the core to continue growing. So we're going to have to find perhaps a better way of engendering passion, because in the case of Africa, we're not yet there yet in terms of our core. Okay, so we're going to have to find some other method of engaging minds, because this thing is about interest, and so you have to engage the right people. If you engage the folks who are on the high level, higher layers, they will go elsewhere. But if you engage the kind that are interested in expanding the core, understanding the fundamentals, then perhaps maybe there's an issue of who you choose. because there's so many, available, because it's expanding. And if you get someone from a high level, it may not be able to fit it. So your job is just become a little bit more difficult. On advice to the young, this is a bit of a very strange technology. It looks very simple. And in fact, it is indeed simple, but it has many layers, many pieces. And as you begin to peel them off, unless you really are committed, you will not be able to do it. So me, the advice to the youth is follow the mentors.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nee, Dr. Crocker. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take more questions and and continue this very interesting interaction. Few things to take out from our brief discussion is that we need to continue working on the technology, keep developing the core, keep the openness out there so that the innovation can continue to happen at the edge, but also at the core. And I believe that to come back to what Dr. Nee and Dr. Crocker just said about the passion is probably moving at different places of the overall infrastructure and the technology in general. And we are going to witness other disruptive technologies, disruptive innovation that's are going to be built on top or on the technology. And I think what is fundamental is to have the baseline, the foundation strong enough to be able to keep those innovation and those disruption with the same mindset of resiliency, openness. That's the pandemic shows us that design worked because the internet didn't break even when the pattern of the traffic has changed and when people start working from different places. I really want to thank both of you. You are people that I admire a lot. I want, when I grow up, to be like you guys, because at your senior age, you keep working, still motivated, and actually being a driver for some of us to continue to engage and be positive for the future of this technology, despite all the hurdle that we are going through. Thank you very much, both of you. Keep the good work. We will follow your path, and we hope that anyone behind us also will follow that path, and be bold, go out there